Hello, and welcome to Breast Cancer Conversations, a podcast brought to you by survivingbreastcancer.org. I am Laura Carfang, breast cancer survivor and founder of survivingbreastcancer.org, a nonprofit organization providing community, education, and resources to empower those diagnosed with breast cancer and their caregivers from day one and beyond. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of Breast Cancer Conversations. I am so excited for today because we are celebrating our 300th episode of the podcast, and you are here to listen to it. So thank you so much for being here. When we think about 300 episodes, I don't just think about the number. I think about the hundreds of conversations, stories, voices, questions, tears, moments of laughter, and moments of truth that have shaped the podcast and this community. From the very beginning, Breast Cancer Conversations has been about creating space for the conversations we don't always get to share in the examining room with our doctors. The conversations about diagnosis, treatment, survivorship, metastatic disease, recurrence, progression, grief, fear, advocacy, body image, relationships, side effects. Oh my God, the list goes on. But this podcast has never been just about me asking those questions. It is always about listening to people with those lived experiences, listening to the caregivers, the clinicians, the researchers, the advocates, the community, you. Listening to you. So for this 300th episode, I wanted to do something different. I invited members of the SBC community to join me. The people who show up, who share, who listen, who support one another, and who help make this community what it is today. Today's episode is part of a celebration. It is also part reflection, part of a love letter to this community. We talk about what community really means, what support looks like in real life, what episodes of conversations stay with us, and what we wish more people understood about breast cancer. This is not a formal question and answer panel. This is just going to be a conversation fireside chat where we have room to breathe and talk about what it's like to live with a breast cancer diagnosis. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for helping us reach 300 episodes. Welcome to the conversation.
I'm Jessica. I was diagnosed in 2023 with stage 2 ER/PR positive breast cancer. I went through chemo, radiation, a double mastectomy, and a multitude of reconstruction surgeries.
I'm Veronica Novi calling in from New York City. I was diagnosed in January of 2020. Oh, I'm sorry. I was diagnosed in January 2018, stage 2B cancer with I had two separate cells in the one breast. So I was told to just go ahead and remove the breast. So I've done chemo, radiation, aromatase inhibitors, and I've been through at least seven procedures to get myself to here I am today. And I'm so happy and thankful to be here at this recording of the 300th episode of podcast.
Amazing. Thank you. Isn't it funny how the dates all blur together? I was like, was it 2020? Was it 2018? Maybe I should introduce myself. What is my name? I mean, chemo brain is real. So you guys are hearing it nice and raw. I love it. Thank you, Veronica, for being here.
Hi, Christine. I'm in Prince Edward Island, Canada. I was diagnosed in April 2018, HR2 positive. I was diagnosed in Mexico, did all of my treatment in Mexico, which was, oh dear, lots of chemo, radiation, double mastectomy, 2 blood clots, shingles. It was all fun. Yeah, and so I'm coming up on October will be my 6 years.
Hi, everybody. Hillary from also New York City, specifically Brooklyn. Laura, congratulations on 300 episodes. This is quite a milestone and an undertaking, which it's just a fabulous resource to everybody who has participated and listened. I had my early stage diagnosis June 2021 with TNBC, followed by my metastatic diagnosis in September of 2022. And I've been on my first line of treatment since then. So that everything's been stable, and I'm hoping to continue that way, but also I'm hoping to spread the word to people And that's why I'm so pleased to participate today.
I agree with others. It's a real honor. I'm from the little state of Rhode Island, next door neighbors to where Laura is out in Massachusetts area. I was diagnosed 3 years ago with early stage IDC, estrogen positive. I too am on an aromatase inhibitor. They tell me it's going to be 5 years. We shall see. And I ultimately had a single mastectomy with chemo. I had to make a decision as to whether or not I was going to have radiation, which was quite challenging, and I chose not to. And I'm thrilled to be here, Laura, and celebrate everything that you have done for our community. Thank you.
Thank you for those amazing introductions. And then for our listeners too, while we talk about all stages and subtypes and across the US, across the globe of where people are calling and listening and tuning into, one of the interesting things about podcasting is that I talk to you guys weekly. I feel like you guys have learned so much about Laura Carfang because I share random tidbits. I kind of sometimes complain about my husband. I talk about being vegan who got a breast cancer diagnosis. I give shout outs to my mom. And randomly, when I see people in person, they're like, oh, Laura, I remember that episode when you talked about X, Y, and Z. And I forget that I am so vulnerable sometimes and I share these personal, intimate moments with kind of the ether, right? You guys get to hear my voice. You guys get to hear and see me. But some people, if I don't know your names or can put names and faces together or know your email addresses, you're just a listener or an IP address that is downloading something and listening. And so I bring this up because I think there's so many different modalities in which people find support and find community and find what resonates with them to help them get through and navigate a cancer diagnosis. And I know for me, even attending my very first support group, it was really hard for me to show up and admit that I had breast cancer and go into a virtual room or even at my clinic, go into a room with others being diagnosed with breast cancer to say, oh, yes, I have breast cancer. And now I'm part of this group. That was very scary. It took a lot of courage, I think, to show up. And with podcasting, for someone listening, it can be very passive, right? You can just listen in the background. You could be doing other tasks at the house. You could be driving, you could be walking, you could be listening, but you could also pause and you can also turn it off. It's very awkward to walk out of a support group room mid-session if you're like, oh, this is not for me. This is so overwhelming. But I share this because I want to talk about the modality of podcasting and storytelling and listening and this sense of community that we have built since 2018 when we had our very first episode. Now, at the time of this 300th recording, it's 2026, and we have built a tribe of avid listeners who tune in week after week to listen. So I would love to open it up. And Veronica, let me start with you because you've not only been part of the survivingbreastcancer.org community for so long, you've also been on the podcast twice before, have one of the most popular topics about preparing for surgery. So you're not new to the podcast or the community. But when you think about community, can you give me a little bit of a sense of like, what does that mean to you? And what have you seen evolve since your involvement with SBC and the podcast?
Well, thank you for that, Laura. What I have learned is that prior to coming to SBC and doing my first podcast, I felt very much alone. I was closed off pretty much from the world, having, in the whole process, I didn't have a job anymore. So the only people who knew about my diagnosis was my immediate family, mother, father, sister. So I think it was like a coming out because just like you, when I got the diagnosis, I kind of felt ashamed and I cannot explain that reason. I just felt, oh my goodness, your breast, you have cancer, and so I felt very much isolated. But it was almost as if, when I did my first podcast, it allowed me to speak and it allowed me to alleviate that hurt that was in me about having cancer. And I tell you, once you live through, finding out you have that diagnosis, you have to either learn to sink or swim. And I built up such a community of people that I love to see every week. And again, we're a part of a sisterhood, a community that we never meant to be in. But now that we're here, we're grateful.
Christine, what about you? How has the word community expressed itself to you? I feel like you might have been part of survivorbreastcancer.org for longer than I know, but I feel like recently you and I have really been able to connect on so many levels. You're volunteering for us. You are leading our Thursday Night Thrivers support group. You're part of our breast cancer book club. And then here you are doing your first recording with us. So talk to me about this evolution of, kind of coming out of your shell, to use Veronica's terms, and finding community.
It's interesting because I'm learning more now than I ever did during treatment, because I was living in Mexico, so I was diagnosed, I was there, but there was really no support systems. There was no counselor at the hospital, there wasn't even a cancer center or anything where you went. So you sort of had a community. It was more just me. So sitting on some of the Thursday groups, and I'm learning things, like the resources or just helpful hints and stuff that, I didn't have the luxury of knowing when I probably needed them all. And it is the community, and I call it's the club nobody wants to join. But once you're here, we're all in this same community together. So it's been really, really interesting. And it's nice to have just people that get it. And, you can have those conversations. And what I used to hate is I always call it the dreaded head tilt, oh, I'm so sorry that, and it's just, everybody understands it. We can all talk about it. And, it's just nice to know that, there's nothing you can't say or not say or feel or not feel that, somebody else isn't going to understand completely. So I'm really glad I found everybody.
I want to take a quick moment and tell you something I'm really excited about. You can now download the survivingbreastcancer.org app directly from the App Store or Google Play. Just search for survivingbreastcancer.org. It is completely free to download, and inside you will have access to all of our support groups, educational programs and webinars, all of our blog content and articles, podcast episodes, and community features to connect with others who understand what you're going through. Everything in one place, because navigating breast cancer shouldn't require 15 open browser tabs. Download the app today. Hillary, I would love to connect with you because I'm so glad that you have found survivingbreastcancer.org. One of the things that I'm very proud of that we've been able to evolve through and continue to grow and support is the work that we're doing for those living with and diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer. And so, I always think there's kind of the elephant in the room of oh, is this a group that I can attend? Is there going to be welcoming opportunities? I don't want to scare the early stagers. Is it going to be open to those living with MBC? But I would love to just hear your experience, how you came to know about survivingbreastcancer.org, our podcast, and what that looks like for you in terms of community living with metastatic.
Well, I came across the website, and I'm an information hound. I need to know things, right now. And I go down the rabbit holes. So one of those rabbit holes.
I was in one yesterday, actually. I was in a bad rabbit hole. William has I got to pull you out. They happen.
Yeah. But that's where you get the good information too. You have to dig around and find. So I found this fabulous resource, survivingbreastcancer.org. And, it hooked me in. And I've always been a helper. My job is my life. I just volunteering with things. So it made sense to subtly insert myself. When we met in person in San Antonio.
Yes.
We had chatted briefly before that, but it's being around like-minded people. The community that's involved with that, regardless of the stage and the type, it's just so supportive and inclusive and allowing, you to be you.
Yeah, it's interesting when we think about how many programs and opportunities we offer at survivingbreastcancer.org. Even when I talk to my board directors, it's, we're offering this gateway to come into a community, but there's no right or wrong door. You can come to it via listening to the podcast or through searching and finding our website. Denise, I feel like you found survivingbreastcancer.org through some of our programs specifically. Do you want to talk a little bit about what attracted you to our organization and what programs you found really helpful as you navigated breast cancer?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm trying to recollect when I stumbled upon surviving breast cancer. But as you know, Laura, I'm an Instagram junkie, and somehow I found the connection there. And the first program I attended was Gloria's meditation program. And my goodness, her positivity and just the connection with this small group of women was very powerful. The positivity really propelled me through. I participated in her Encourage and Empower program. And again, it was a cohort based program that allowed me to really feel very connected and supported through the whole experience. I also participated in at the very first summer, right after my surgery, I did try some of the physical programs, but it was a little bit too much for me, the Pilates and yoga. And I have not been able to get back to those. But the benefits of that, I have learned how helpful they are in terms of your mental and your physical health. Gloria asked me to join your early stage leadership, and I raised my hand immediately because I have retired, and I'm like, I don't know what my purpose is, but I'm going to hang on to this. And it's really, Laura, been just an incredible experience, as everyone has said, to feel part of a community.
Gosh, I love that. Thank you. I'm glad she recruited you. I appreciate that. And what's so interesting too, because I don't always get to attend all of our programs. I know what we're offering. We do assessments. We make sure that they're meeting the needs of the people that we are serving. But what I find interesting, and I don't know if you've experienced this, like the people that show up for our Thursday night support group don't necessarily attend Gloria's meditation, or the people that attend the book club don't necessarily attend the art expression class or the physical movement classes. So I feel like, again, there's that gateway, come and see what serves you and take advantages of much or as little as you need. And so I think that's really one of the secret sauces we have here.
Completely agree.
Jessica, as someone who is navigating breast cancer, but then also did a recent road trip and you moved out of state, possibly needing to find, are you looking for like new oncologists, new care teams? Like when you think about community and what we do in a virtual space, how has that manifested in your world, even just moving across state lines?
Doctors, well, I don't like doctors to begin with, let alone with how many doctors we've been to. And so it's very much of like, all right, I need this doctor. Okay, I need this doctor. All right, I need, let me find a physical therapist. That way I have it on hand if I need it. So it's challenging. I think it's more of like, not so much because I'm in Vegas. So there are providers here, but I think it's the thought of just doing it is exhausting. One of my fears that I'm coming into is like, what if I go to the doctors and they're like, oh, well, we need to do all these things. And it wasn't the same path that I'm on right now. So it's kind of, okay, well, why? Is there something wrong? And it's like, oh no, we just do things different. So it's a little daunting to build up my medical community and then meet them in the middle of my journey too, because all the big stuff's been done.
Would anyone like to share the power of storytelling and how it has helped you or not helped you with a cancer diagnosis?
Well, I grew up watching my father write poetry, and he had a desk, and he did smoke, and I remember seeing the smoke signals go up to the ceiling, and it also left a mark, and it it enabled me to start writing. So I started writing, and I would even write and then read it aloud to myself my own words, and I found that empowering. And then being a part of this group, I had been a part for so long, but I had never participated with Thomas Dooley. I heard you ladies speak of him all the time. And then I finally this year participated. And when I tell you that really, really tapped into my emotions and just learning about myself and that words have meaning, small words. And the time he would give us 10 minutes to talk about it, to think about it, then put it on paper. So I found that very powerful for me. Problem with me is that I have written for nearly 15, 20 years, but I haven't pursued anything outside of, trying to get things published. And I've been told by many friends, just do it. And I haven't gone beyond that, but it's something I would like to do in the future. But the power of storytelling is phenomenal, because with words we can take each other to our own existence, things we've done and traveled. And I found it very profound to write and to be a part of that group of writing.
That's amazing. And the fact that you're sharing that you want to publish here on the podcast, us and all of our listeners are going to hold you accountable to that, Veronica. We are cheering you on. And, I think you also say something very powerful of not just being witness to your own words, whether it's you reading it out loud to yourself, having others listen to your story, but sometimes also finding ourselves in other people's stories. Has anyone else experienced that when someone else is reading and you're like, oh my gosh, I experienced that too? Or I didn't have the right word, but how you described that was exactly how I felt.
Yeah, I come across that a lot when I'm reading people's blog posts or posts on Facebook. They're writing, they could be writing about me. Like you said, it really makes you feel seen. Like somebody else knows exactly, to the T, how I'm feeling or what I'm experiencing. And then you read somebody else makes you feel the same way. And it's just, it gives you a sense of connection in a place where you couldn't feel more disconnected.
I kept a Facebook page going, documenting every single thing I did. Some of it just, I think, even sometimes it's reference for me, because I think I just went through the whole procedure with I go to A to B, then I deal with C to D, and not really, you're sort of kind of going through this robotic world. You're not, sometimes listening, not really. So I kept it and I documented everything from, any side effect and the good, the bad, the ugly, everything. And I don't know if it was even people were reading it more as much as it was almost just like me throwing it out there in the world and just kind of, getting it all off of me, and out of me. And, I guess, sort of screaming at the world in some ways. And then I remember reading one book and I remember picking it up and I thought, oh God, this is exactly what I'm going through. It was just talking about the different lives you have now, in a sense that, you have this cancer life and you had the life you had before cancer. And now you've got the new one you're trying to navigate. And it was just it was things like, just the writer was saying, some people saying certain phrases to their oh, everything's going to be okay. And you're kind of going, how do you know? Right. But just all those thoughts that you may have in your head that you don't necessarily voice out to people. But it was just having that, all the inner conversations, this same was happening in this book. And I thought, oh, it's exactly, somebody gets it. And it just validates a lot of what you're going through, that I'm not crazy. That's all powerful, very much.
Denise, in addition to being an avid Instagrammer, you're also a pretty avid reader. I know that we've had conversations about different books that you've read that have been very powerful in your understanding of your own diagnosis and trying to be the healthiest version of yourself. Can I throw things over your way about what you've discovered through the power of not just writing, but then reading other people's work?
Yeah, I agree with Christine. It's you take comfort and say, you know what? I'm not alone. Other people are experiencing this. I've not participated in Thomas's program and am interested, but I did have the opportunity over the past year to write what I call my story. And for me, what I wanted to do, I have two grown daughters who are living a life, and I believe, my diagnosis was due to lifestyle factors. And so I've tried to share with them the story of my life and how I've changed in so many different ways as a gift to them for their future and how they think about their life. And as a result of really opening myself up more emotionally to them and to other people I connect with, I receive so much back in kind. The relationships that I shoot for are not as superficial. I want a very connected relationship. And that's been one of the gifts for me out of this diagnosis that I really appreciate.
Mm. So passing it forward and leaving a gift for your daughters as well.
Yes.
Very
Yes.
transformative.
And therapeutic, honestly.
Writing is just one of those therapeutic healing modalities. Jessica, what have you leaned into to help you navigate and kind of cope and process everything that a breast cancer diagnosis has brought on for you?
For me, it's just been kind of kind of sharing my story, sharing the struggles with it. To those who listen, a lot of times it is in our support groups. I found that a lot of, it's kind of like that thing where it's like, you don't want to sound crazy, but I find comfort. Well, finding comfort is the wrong way to say that, but I feel like I'm not alone when I hear other people's struggles, because then it's like, okay, all right, I felt that too. Okay, it's not normal. That is a problem, or it is normal. I grew up in a way where it's like you just kind of push through things regardless of like what you're feeling. Like, okay, well, I'm going through cancer, I'm going through chemo. Okay, I'm supposed to feel like crap. But then you hear people like, well, no, I don't feel like it, or oh no, I talked to my doctor and I got this, and it's like, I don't have to feel like this all the time. There's actually help with it. So it kind of gives me encouragement to speak out with myself. So I know for me, it's like a lot with talking to doctors, even sometimes misconceptions too about breast cancer in general, with people that might have a fear or they have a scare themselves and stuff. It's not, I feel like I have the ability to share my story with them. So it's not like, oh, it's cancer. I just got my toe tag. I'm ready to go, because you just feel like it's the end then. So I feel like just sharing my story for who will listen, and then supporting others in their stories.
This misconception around what breast cancer is, misconception of information, and then empowerment of how do we know? Because no one tells us that we can speak up or advocate for ourselves or ask questions or take a medication to help support a side effect that we have or ask for dose reduction, etc. So can you tell me a little bit more? I'll just continue the conversation with you quickly since you brought up some of these things, this empowerment piece. And when in your, I guess if we think about your experience from being diagnosed with breast cancer, was there a turning point when you realized your voice was this powerful tool that could be utilized?
I think with me and like with many other ladies, like I like to research. So I've always like dove into it. It's like, okay, I have my levels here. This is what's happening. So from the start, it was always asking my doctor a lot of those questions. Like, okay, I know you understand, but I need to understand. I've explained it before a lot of times. I love my doctor. I still love her, but she was more of a scientist. I would tell people that like, people are like, oh, who do you see? And I was like, oh, I see so and so. They're like, oh, okay, because somebody needs to find a doctor. I'm okay. Well, I'm like, I'm gonna tell you, if they need a hand holder, you have to tell the doctor that, because she's more of a scientist. So, because at first I felt like a lab rat. But it was just, and then I just got a rapport with my doctor, and now I love her because she gives me all the information I need. Like she'll spell it out to me, and then that's what I need as a patient.
Trying to find that rapport with your medical care team, trying to make sure that there's a fit, getting second or third opinions, and knowing that if you need to break up with your doctor, that's okay too. Christine, you had such an interesting experience being treated in Mexico. And I'm curious, what misconceptions have you come across in your experience?
Like I didn't know anything. Like, I mean, I remember like even like was misdiagnosed. I was misdiagnosed. And when I finally was diagnosed, I remember just saying like, well, I'm sorry, but my family doesn't have cancer. We have, heart conditions. I'm supposed to walk down the street and one day I'll explode and that's the end of it. Like I have focused towards I'm going to have a bad, heart. And I remember, getting diagnosed and I was, more of a shock than anything because there is no history. And I think I was prepared for every movie you've ever seen where, she gets breast cancer. She sits in her little chair with her little blankie on and, she's so frail and all this, right? So I remember, going to a support group in Mexico, lovely women, but they had really had bad experiences. And I went and I bought a bucket because I figured, well, I'm going to be sick. So I have to get my bucket. So I bought a bucket and, I was all ready and I go for the first, chemo, and it was this, massive cocktail. I was at the hospital all day and I came home and I sat there with my bucket and I'm going, do, 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 waiting. Right. And I thought, okay, why am I not sick? And then I thought, oh God, I'm in Mexico. They haven't given me chemo. They've given me something else because I'm not sick. And I panicked and then I started Googling. I went, no, okay, apparently I've got the right stuff. So I remember saying to my doctor, like, oh, something's wrong because I'm not sick. And she goes, yeah, so be thankful. And I said, but all this stuff I've seen. And then I remember, like I said, I always say I did cancer wrong because I gained weight on chemo. And I remember going back going, I'm gaining weight. And she goes, good, be thankful. And and then I lost my hair, but I had this, like, I call it like this fluff, like baby fluff that was left. So, cause I was going to henna my head and then I had all this fluff and I couldn't do that. And I kept saying, nothing is going right. Like, but I think so the misconceptions, I guess, in that way, or, really like why I was never sick. I was tired, but I was never, there was nothing I couldn't do. I continued to, do my own groceries and go to dinner and, everything. So I think that was the biggest was I was waiting for all of this to somehow, I guess, figure that it was working. And, it was only through the testing and every time you went for diagnosis and stuff that, it went, oh, okay, this is actually working. But otherwise I kept thinking, I'm fine. Like I'm still functioning and I don't know why I'm not that person sitting in my little chair with, the blanket over me. And I thought, so there that in a way, plus I remember saying to my doctor, like, this is what I wanted. I only wanted to eat red meat. I only wanted to eat hamburger. You're not supposed to eat red meat. And I had to have my one Coca-Cola after chemo. I don't know why, but, I had to have full sugar. And she just kept saying, she goes, all I want you to do is eat. If you eat a whole cake, eat a cake. If you only eat this, just eat. She goes, whatever happens, we'll deal with it all in the end. So, again, I think that's maybe that's some of the misconceptions that, you're not supposed to have the sugar. You're not supposed to have the red meat. You're not supposed to have the whatever. I did it all wrong, like I said, but, I'm still here. So something went right.
I love how she kept telling you to be grateful, though. And, we're expecting the worst. And she's like, no, this is okay. It sheds light onto the fact that not everyone's going to get the same symptoms and side effects. And I'm curious, did anyone else have this experience with their doctors of you're going through chemo and this is a very hard regimen? Just, don't worry about the diet. Just make yourself comfortable and get through this.
My experience was the breast surgeon gave me all this information about the Blue Zone diet to the point that I was overwhelmed and completely stressed out. And then when I went to see the oncologist, she basically said to me, eat whatever you can eat whatever you want. She said, I'm going to be with you for the next 5 years. And, you can worry about your diet at that point. But enough damage had been done to me that eating was a challenge for me in terms of what I ate. And Laura, as you know, I did ultimately change my diet completely. I wasn't as healthful in terms of what I ate as what I do now.
Hillary, I want to ask, as someone living with metastatic disease, right, your experience could potentially be a little bit different than what we're talking about right now, where it's like, I need to get through the next 12 weeks and just kind of cope and manage versus being on treatment for the remainder. But then I'm also curious, we're talking a little bit about how we cope with stress, with ambiguity, writing, et cetera. And so I'd love to kick things over to you and have you explore, what modalities do you lean on to help you kind of navigate uncertainty and kind of this living in between exams and tests and waiting and unknown and food, of course. Like, how's your diet?
My diet is horrible. I pretty much eat whatever I want, which isn't a lot to begin with. But now it's starting to catch up to me because I am putting on weight and I don't know, and I don't move a lot either. I'm pretty sedentary. So all of those contribute to the weight gain and the lethargy. And for me in particular, when I was diagnosed metastatic, it was in my lungs. So I had to have procedures. So I don't have full lung capacity on one side. So that was always difficult for me to do anything. In my mind, I know this is not good. and that I should be, and I could be more active. And it's just, with all the other supports I have going on that are fabulous, I just can't seem to get the motivation to begin, to get off the couch, to move my body, to eat healthier.
I give myself all these excuses. It's like, oh my gosh, I work so much. I'm so tired. I deserve to just lie on the couch or watch something on Netflix.
As I was going through chemo, I lost weight, and I actually didn't mind it. I was weighed every week. I didn't have much of an appetite, but I knew I had to eat. But I do recall the doctor saying, again, if you want to eat, whenever you want to eat, you could eat. So it could be 1 o'clock in the morning. If I wanted something, I would eat it, so I really didn't mind that advice. Right now, I still try to remain active, even though there's pain here and pain there. I know we've got to move this body. I don't do any structured exercise, which I know is not good, but I'm always bouncing around the house, working and, you know, doing something. So I think that's good as well. So I give myself that grace.
As I'm thinking about the future of how we can deliver content and viable information, what is it that you guys are looking to see from breast cancer conversations?
Top of mind for me is that I got kicked into osteoporosis taking the AI that I do take. And I've gone to my PCP, I've talked to the oncologist, and I just don't feel, they said, go talk to an endocrinologist. But how do I optimize? I do exercise a lot. I'm very committed to that now, but I want to I'm a student. I think Jessica said this earlier, you like to study and research. And you hear so many different things. I would love to attend a podcast on how do you best deal with osteoporosis
Yes. And the longer that we're living, the more side effects that are popping up. The whack-a-mole syndrome, I feel that there's always something where it's like, oh gosh, now I have to deal with X, Y, and Z because of the amazing life-saving treatments that we were on. So I love that we have weekly episodes every week, and it's all things breast cancer conversations, and we bring in different guests and topics. But I also harken back to like how some other podcasts are more series based, and they will do a series, and it's almost like true crime. Not that like breast cancer is scary enough already, but like, is there like a storytelling element of like, da da da, come next, tune in next week to find out what happens to Denise and her osteoporosis? I don't know. Like, is there some some way of making the podcasting more episodic, I guess?
What I think is, those of us, when we're talking survivorship, so like talking about what we went through, what our active treatment was, where we all were, or where, like, when I found survivingbreastcancer.org, I was finished with active treatment. I was in radiation, and I was looking for what next? How do you handle this new normal? How do you, so I think that if we could tell more, maybe not all the side effects of survivorship and all the hardships, but, there's good things out there in survivorship. It just, I feel like now, of course, a lot has changed for me, but I feel better off mentally maybe now than I did before cancer. It's like you almost have a purpose or something. So I don't know. Because I remember saying to my oncologist, well, what the heck am I supposed to do now that I fought through all this, And it's sort of upsetting, but I know what I do now. So, if we could.
It's a weird awakening.
Yeah, it is.
When you said series based, I was thinking the same thing, because it's a lot of times we'll want to talk about a certain topic, but we'll just talk about it for a few minutes, and then we don't get to expound on that.
When I started telling people that I had breast cancer, then I was starting to hear, oh, I have breast cancer, or, I had that. Nobody talked about it. There's a taboo to it. And if there's a way to breach that, to normalize the conversations, so off the bat, people don't have to feel so isolated and alone.
Thank you for sharing that. And as we close our 300th episode, I am feeling so much gratitude. Gratitude for every guest who has trusted us with their story, Gratitude for every one of you who are listening and who have pressed play while sitting in the waiting room, driving to treatment, recovering from surgery, folding laundry, walking outside, or simply just trying to feel less alone. 300 episodes is a milestone, but it is also a reminder of how much more there is still to talk about. Breast cancer is not one story. It is many stories. It is a diagnosis and treatment, but it is also fear, grief, joy, identity, advocacy, community, research, survivorship, metastatic, and the everyday moments of truly trying to feel alive in the middle of uncertainty. To our SBC survivingbreastcancer.org community, thank you for showing up. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for reminding us that connection is care. Here's to 300 conversations and many more to come. And thank you, everyone, for listening to our show. I would like to acknowledge that all of the information on our podcast is from personal experiences and is not a substitute for professional medical advice. You should always contact your medical care team. If you are looking for specific topics or would like to be a guest on our show, please feel free to reach out. My email is laura@survivingbreastcancer.org. Our show is made possible by our nonprofit, survivingbreastcancer.org, and by our incredible donors like yourself. You can hop on over to survivingbreastcancer.org to sign up for our mailing list, make a donation, and explore the 400 plus programs we offer each year at survivingbreastcancer.org/events. Until next time, keep on thriving.